I can choose on how I respond to something versus react to it. I'm going to make a choice that makes the difference in how you show up as a parent, a spouse, an employee, a leader, and overall as a man in our case.
There was an interview with Jocko, who is a world-renowned judo practitioner, Navy SEAL, tough guy. The interviewer said, all right, so you're walking down the street with your wife and your daughters, and somebody steps to you. What do you do to them? And he said, well, I grab my wife's hand and my daughter's hand, and I'll walk across the street, and we head home. And the guy was kind of flabbergasted. He was like, well, dude, what about your wife's honor? Like, what if he gets in your face? I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, if it takes me beating up a vagrant on the side of the street in front of my wife to show her I honor her, I have failed her in every way imaginable. And I remember exhaling, oh my gosh, I have been flexing for the last 25 years. When really what my wife wanted me to do was A, be able to take care of her, be able to love her and walk alongside her, be able to honor and respect her, and get everybody home safely so we can watch TV and eat popcorn, right? Like, look at home, because I got a really good life.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Vinny Brusco Show podcast. On this week's episode, I'm speaking with Doctor John Delony. Dr. Delony is a two-time national best-selling author. He is also the host of the Doctor John Delony Show. He has 2 PhDs and over 2 decades of experience in counseling, crisis response, and higher education. He is also the author of best-selling books, Own Your Past, Change Your Future, Redefining Anxiety, and most recently, Building a Non-Anxious Life. He has also been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Fox News, Fox Business, and has been guest on podcasts such as Jordan Peterson and the Mind Pump podcast. Dr. Delony's goal is to help people navigate through tough decisions, improve their relationships, and believe that they are worth being well. Click subscribe to the podcast and follow along the journey of the show as we dive into self-help, human development, and how to navigate this wild world that we live in. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Dr. John Delony. Enjoy.
Hey, what is up? This is Dr. John Delony, and you are checking out the Vinny Brusco Show. Stay tuned.
And here we go.
Your book, Building a Non-Anxious Life, I have to say, is so relievingly applicable and relatable and palatable for the average person who's reading a book about anxiety.
Dude, thanks, man. That was real intentional. I wrote that book for people who only read 1 or 2 books a year and try to make it as I mean, again, I'll never be Huberman. That guy's a savant, and he works at Stanford Medical School. And if you're into dopamine and dopaminergic, or I can't even pronounce the word. If you're into dopamine pathways, like, man, go down that rabbit hole. And I love that stuff. What I've found is the average person has 2 kids or 3 kids, and they're exhausted, and they want to be a different kind of dad, and they want to be a little more present mom, and like, can you just, I don't have time. Can you help? And that's who this book was geared for.
Yeah, and it's very evident in the reading of it. It reads beautifully. It's super relatable, as I mentioned, and it's applicable, right? That's the thing. I think to set the guidelines of the conversation, what is your definition of anxiety? Because it feels as though your definition breaks away from the cultural norm and expectation of what anxiety is.
Anxiety is simply your body's attempt to, it's your body's understanding that it's detected that you may or may not be safe in your present or future environment, and it's trying to get your attention. Ta-da! That's it. Anxiety is a smoke detector, man. It's just trying to get your attention that it detects threats here or coming your way.
And it really is that simple, right? It really is that simple to break it down. But, you hear people all the time say, I have anxiety. I have this. I have that. And the reality is you don't have anxiety. You have brown hair. You're experiencing anxiety, and you may be experiencing it very frequently, but you start to identify with this word. And then that becomes your trait, your characteristic. That's how you identify and navigate through the world.
Right. And I don't think for 99.9% of us, it's our fault. Somebody in a lab coat says, hey, you have a thing. This is who you're going to be now. And here's some things you got to do, because this is who you are. Your lot has been cast. And it's just it's another, I don't know, I kind of fancy myself kind of a get along with everybody kind of guy, right? I like deer hunting, and I drove a Prius for a long time. Like, I kind of like everybody, but the thing I can't do anymore is this culture of disempowerment, this preaching at people that you are somehow broken, something wrong with you, the way you think, the way you talk, the way you experience the world, the way your particular body tries to navigate threats and trauma. And I'm sick of it, man, because you tell somebody enough, hey, you're malfunctioning. This is just who you are. Then you just shift your life into neutral and you wait for someone to come take care of you. And that's how real transcendent abuse happens. And I'm just done with it, man. Yes, your body is really trying to get your attention. Either the world you were born into a terrible situation, or you've created one for yourself, or some mix of both, but your body's probably working pretty freaking well. It's just trying to get your attention, that it is recognizing the way your life is right now, or the train that's coming at you, is not good, man. It's not good.
And it's funny because I feel as though from the outside looking in, you'd be able to speak on this much better, is that the shift of the world of psychology is starting to happen. You're seeing a little bit more of an interpretation of the soul, like a Carl Jung approach to psychology. You're seeing a little bit more with, with things like psilocybin and ketamine and all these different other modalities, other than having a guy in a suit with a notebook while you're laying on his couch talking about your problems and him preaching at you or listening to you. You're starting to see this real shift in therapy and psychology that is a little bit more all-inclusive with the soul and with the experience, and the word trauma gets thrown around a lot, but you're starting to see this big shift in the world of psychology.
Well, I think I talk about this in the book, but we've just tried to convince people that mental health, whatever that even means anymore, is just getting all your right thoughts in the right order, right? It's thinking all the right things and having all the right feelings follow those thoughts. And now you're quote unquote well. That's just not how that works, man. You have to do stuff that's different. You have to have a tribe or a gang. And I think what makes for me therapy really, really amazing is I am connected one-on-one with somebody. And if somebody I tell you right now, the counselor I meet with, she's an oracle, and she's the best I've ever seen. But I tell you what, she doesn't sit in front of me. She doesn't block our connection with a clipboard. She's present with me, right? She doesn't sit behind a big desk and cast judgment on me. She doesn't make me look their way, so we don't have eye contact. I don't know. I haven't researched this. I had a professor tell me that Freud had really bad teeth, and he was super self-conscious of his teeth. Again, someone's going to fact check this, but this is from my professor. He said Freud had real bad teeth, was very self-conscious of his teeth, and actually used cocaine, which was a common treatment, to numb the pain of his teeth. And that's why I ended up with such a renowned coke habit. But he was embarrassed of his teeth, and so he asked his patients to lay down and face the other way. So you have the entire course of modern therapy, psychology, because of one dude's insecurity about his teeth. I mean, if that's where we are. So there is a big push, oh yeah, therapy's bad, it's too much therapy, yada yada. I can go with that, but I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because if we see the statistics, kids especially, they got nobody. They got nobody. And so now if you write all these sensational things about their school guidance counselor or their school therapist, then they're going to have nobody, because parents sure as crap aren't stepping in there. And so, yeah, I think the conversation has to shift. I think mental health cozied up and wanted to be taken seriously like a medical, like the medical community is. And so they labeled everything and sought insurance after everything, and all those things are fine, but they cozied up trying to become legitimate. And in the process, they left their people behind. And so, yeah, now it's kind of turning into the Wild West, man. Everything from essential oils to psilocybin to whatever you got going on.
Yeah. And it seems as though some of those things are in practice and they're making real leaps and bounds in regards to actually moving the needle forward, right? The old idea is that, the problem with therapy sometimes can be that you're just kind of in this loop of just getting comfortable with this person. Yeah.
That's exactly right. When somebody comes and says, "Oh, I've had the same therapist for 7 years," I'll usually interrupt them and say, "Whoa, leave that person," right? Whatever y'all are working on ain't working, all right?
Right.
Um, the therapist should help you practice things in relationship so that you can head back out into the highway. It's a pit stop. It is not, you don't park there. And so they teach you, they help you, they give you a space to practice where no one's going to judge you when you screw it up. They let you say some things out loud, and more importantly, practice saying things out loud that might terrify you in front of other people so that you can go say it to your wife and your kids and your close friends and your buddies, etc.
Yeah. You had said this on Jordan Peterson's podcast that if you were to um, distill down the pathologies of the modern civilization, that we are desperately, pathologically, spiritually, and frightening lonely.
Yeah, frighteningly lonely. We've created the loneliest generation in human history. And that's why I think a lot of our social science studies are just a waste of the paper they're printed on, because it's like trying to study a car engine without it running. And you can't fully know how a person operates and what wellness looks like outside of a relationship context. We are tribal creatures. We are primates stuck in designed to run in tribes, and you can't pull one off, stick them in a room, and then study them and think that you're getting the full picture of that person, of that being. And so studies that aren't done in relational context, I hold with high skepticism. And our bodies are falling apart underneath us, and we've got nobody. And that was actually one of my hypotheses. And I always, every time I have an opportunity to speak in front of groups of veterans, and I've worked with veterans for years and years and years and years, I always have an off to the side, hey, let me ask you something. I have a working hypothesis that I can never test. But if you go overseas and you do combat, you don't ever do combat. You just do basic, and you really run the gauntlet with a group of men and women. Your body at the nervous system level knows what it's like to go into a scary situation surrounded by people who will die for you. That is a sensation. That is a feeling that very few people will ever experience, that level of security and safety. And then you get out and you unplug from that level, that depth of safety and security. And then they drop you in an apartment complex somewhere in Nebraska, or they drop you in like a suburban neighborhood somewhere in North Houston. And they say, all right, go get them. And your neighbor comes out and they're like, oh, excuse me, you parked on my grass. Can you move your, or somebody, like,
Right.
You'll never, ever, what friendship and connectivity and love feels like in your guts. And your body will always be searching for that level of depth and tribal community, because that's how we're wired. And I think that's the cause of a lot of the challenges folks have when they get home. And I think that's, you take the military community out of it, I think that's all of us. We have completely unplugged ourselves. We're a group of people designed to live with cousins and extended neighbors and extended family and everybody in a big compound somewhere or in the same tribe. And now there's 2.5 kids and a husband and a wife, and they live in a suburban box. And everybody has their own room, and everybody has their own dish, and nobody talks to anybody. Everybody's got their own cell phone, and we have just isolated ourselves. And I think our bodies are falling apart.
If you and it goes the other way.
Not that I'm not passionate about this. I can get kind of soapboxy and preachy about this.
Let's get soapboxy, and you can go the other way too with the healing modalities of things like sensory deprivation. Anything in a vacuum can be perfect, right? And it could be an experience that you can't recreate outside of that vacuum, and then it does become this chasing of the dragon. You're following this golden thread to the golden shadow of yourself, and the day-to-day, monotony starts to settle in. And that's where also people get very disconnected, and your neighbor or your coworker or whomever, comes up to you and it's just like, yeah, I just want to explode.
Right. Well, and that again, I've the MAPS data is very compelling. And the first person narratives of folks who have gone and done psilocybin, gone and done those things, it's incredibly compelling to me. And I'm a skeptic by nature, and it's super compelling. And I haven't talked to anybody who's had successful experiences without A, going over with a team, B, going through a series of things as a group, as a cohort of scary, hard experiences, and then having somebody walk with you, and then having somebody let you go, and then having a team of people be there when you come back. Like, so everything about that is wrapped in community and safety and relationship, right? And so I think if you back up and look at all these modalities, all these quote unquote fancy things, the ones that really work, nobody's going off into a private closet by themselves and shutting the door and doing all this stuff and walking out, whether it's ketamine, whether it's any of those things. Everybody is doing these things with some sort of guide or expert or community that's walking with you before and after. And I think that's going to end up playing a significant role, maybe even as much as the actual chemical itself. Maybe not, but that's my working hypothesis right now.
And they could be working in conjunction with each other, right? One could be fueling the other, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It becomes an amplifier effect, right? A compound interest effect.
Exactly. Would you say that, from all your experiences and all the people you've spoken to, would you say that that loneliness is the key connective fiber of anxiety?
I don't know that. I'll say it this way. I don't know that you can. Nope. Here's how I'll say it. If your body recognizes you have no tribe, that you are responsible for safety, for food provision, for child rearing, for occupation, for whatever, your body would be failing you if it let you sleep all night. Your body would be failing you if it didn't sound the alarms at every possible second you were awake, because you're on for everything all the time. Your body would be failing you if it let you have a deep, intimate, connected moment with your husband or wife. It'd be failing you because it's not time for sex. It's time to not die, right? And all of those things I'm talking about, to make rational choices. You don't make good choices when you're in fight or flight. And so you're going to withdraw your money from your mutual funds, from your retirement funds, take the 40% penalty, and you're going to buy crypto with it because you're terrified. You're running scared. You're not making rational choices. And so, yeah, if I was to go down all the way to the core, I would tell somebody, you can't get well. You can't teach your body that you're safe now unless you've got other people. Yeah, I would stand on that pretty firmly.
It's interesting because in a culture where we're so connected, right, with social media and everything, we are seeing this spikes of depression, these spikes of anxiety. When you survey people of how many close friends do they actually have, it's like zero. And it seems to affect men significantly more than it does women. What is it about men that, we're not socially accepted to express our emotions, or we're not in a culture that promotes guys speaking about what they're experiencing? It's almost, still that old school mentality of like, get to work and shut up.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, guys run the institution, so we perpetuate that ourselves. It's our own dumb fault. I think if you go back to evolutionary psychology lens and look through it that way, women had to be social. They're smaller. They got smaller arms, right? Like, as Dwight Schrute says, right? Like, they had to work in teams to get things done. And men were bigger and they could lift things and push things and conquer things, if you will. And so that's a very generalized, crude way of saying that. But I think over human history, that's kind of how it played out. I think where we're facing now is the great Terry Real wrote a book called The New Rules of Marriage. I think women have achieved or are achieving greater and greater and greater economic freedom in our culture. Significantly more women graduate from college than men now. Programs designed to support learners, support the men, that it doesn't move the needle for them at all. It does move the needle for women. So we're seeing women catch up. And what we're also seeing when they catch up is in terms of influence and economic spending ability and overall, they have just a seat at the table, is they leave men because men haven't shifted the way they haven't changed, right? They need a vulnerable partner. They need to say, hey, I'm scared about something. I'm nervous about something. They can't just grunt in the next room and expect all their problems to go away. They need to learn how to talk to their kids. And so I think we've done it to ourselves. And I think we have to quickly get over that, or we're going to be in a way. I mean, Chris Williamson talks about this eloquently. Men are on a terrifying decline, a slide that's going to be very challenging to get out of if a group of men doesn't stand up and say, okay, here's the new rules. Here's how we got to do this. You got to have feelings, and you got to feel them, and you got to say them out loud. And then you got to go do the next hard, scary thing. You got to do both of those things, not one or the other. And without that, man, I don't know. I think we've done it to ourselves.
So you say we've done it to ourselves, but isn't there this kind of underlying cultural suppression of men? And, it's almost as if, it does get brushed to the side if you're a guy and you start speaking about your emotions, or there is this delusion of men not being able to show up in a certain way, or there's also the dissolve of what a man is, right? We're also now in a world where you can identify as different things, and what is a man, what is a woman, and what a man is and what a woman now is getting kind of blurred.
Yeah, but again, I'm going to go back and again, I'm calling myself out here, but men kind of decided the rules for culture for the last couple 100 years, right? Like, I remember a guy. It was awesome. We were out to lunch, and there were three of us, and all three of us worked at the same university. I was wearing like a dress shirt and some dress pants, and my buddy who worked in the finance department was wearing jeans and a dress shirt. The other dude had a suit and tie on. And I never forget, my buddy who was in finance said, why are you dressing like that? We're in Texas. It's 1,000 degrees. And the guy goes, I'm dressing for the job I want, not the job I have. And my buddy goes, I would never want a job where I have to dress like that. That would be miserable to dress like that every day. And I remember thinking, yeah, why did we decide that this is what this looks right? You would think that the guys who had $1 billion would be the guys wearing t-shirts and shorts to work. And no, we're going to wear $10,000 outfits. We're going to suffocate ourselves. We're going to choke ourselves. So I say we make the rules, whatever those things are, and they're highly uncomfortable. And so I think it takes a group of men and women to say, all right, here's what this looks like. And yes, you're right. We're in an identity-free zone, man. It's kind of a free-for-all. But I think we're doing a lot of talking instead of a lot of modeling. Here's what this looks like. And we're not getting that modeling from politicians. We're not getting that modeling from traditional church leaders. We're not getting that modeling from Little League dads. We're getting a bunch of adults that are running around like children, out of control maniacs. And so we're having to figure out, where's a picture for what this looks like that I need so desperately to see it so I can live into it. It's a messy time, man.
It is. And is there a model to recreate, or is there a model to emulate what that is? Or is that something that you have to discover within yourself and perhaps go on some type of religious purposeful journey? Is that something that we have to embody what God is, and God could take on different meanings and different forms for different people? But do we have to instill that version of ourselves, or that version of a man, through something like a lens of God?
Well, I do think one critical pillar. I don't know that you ever find a place where your body can rest when it feels it's holding up the universe, when you're the god of your own plate, of your own world, your own existence, or you're a nihilist. There's nothing, right? There's no thread holding this thing together, whether that's a thread of judgment or a thread of love or whatever that thread is. If there's just nothing, if it's a great nothing that's constantly expanding, that is a soul, that is a body that is untethered, right? That's free solo. So yes, I think a cornerstone that I hang my hat on, talking about how to create a non-anxious life, is you have to plug into something bigger than yourself. For me and my family, we're Christian. That's who we plug into. That is the stabilizing force of love in our planet that allows my shoulders to drop and say, I'm not the center of the universe. This whole thing isn't for me. And that provides a lens by which I look at my wife and my kids. This whole existence I have in my house is not for me. I am, as John Tyson says, I'm joyfully entering into the act of sacrificial commitment. My whole life is dedicated to other people. And that is when you let go. right? And that's peace. And we think it's the opposite way. Jocko is actually somebody who talks really eloquently about this, about decentralized leadership. It's the leader that has everything constricted and trying to hold on to every detail versus the leader who has some guys come back and say, hey, we had this plan and this is what's going on. And he goes, cool, go solve it. Go get it. And it's this, I'm not the center of this universe, man. In fact, I am plugging in and we're all heading out.
What are some of the other pillars? Because it seems as though God or Christianity in your case, or whatever religion is that middle pillar, right? That kind of holds up when the other pillars start to crumble. What are some of the other pillars?
The anchor,
yeah. What are some of the other pillars that you have in your life, or that people can use in their life in order to, not only have that pillar, but other pillars around it?
As we talked about, connection is a pillar. You got to have other people. And I don't care who you are, I don't care how independent you are, I don't care how introverted you are, you got to have other people. Another big one that tends to raise to my brows is you have to have a body that has autonomy. That's the nerd word for it, or agency is the nerd word. What I mean by that, you have to be free. And if you have a mortgage, if you got a car payment, if you got credit card payments, your body knows that you are not in charge of what happens tomorrow. Bank of America is. The Chevy Motor Corporation is in charge of what you're doing tomorrow. So this job killing you, I don't give a crap. You took my car home early and you said you'll pay me back over the next 7 years with interest at 20%. Cool. You get your butt in there and work. You're sick. I don't care. You got an anxiety disorder. I don't care. Go to work. You owe me money. And if you don't, I'm going to take away your car. I'm going to take away your house. I'm going to take away groceries off your table for you and your kids because you took the house. You took the gadget off of Amazon. You took the car and you said you pay me back. Dude, if you sign up for that, if you hook your body to these things, your body has to be sounding the alarms 24/7, man. You are just 1 month away from losing your car and your house and your food. That's a terrifying proposition. When you think about being, for 10,000 years, we moved around. We had legacy property. We had, or nomadic property. Property was God's, and we just moved from place to place, right? This idea that we are owned by other people. And now debt used to be a way you trapped entire groups of people. Now we sign up for it. It's our way of life, right? That's madness. And so, a core pillar, it took me and my wife 15 years. And I was the dean of students at a great law school surrounded by brilliant people who did really well financially. And I had a $3,000 truck because sleeping at night was more important to me than a cool sound system and air conditioners and a depreciating asset that sat out in the sun and the rain and made me feel good about myself, right? And so it's this, I'm going to work really hard for the next however many years, and I'm going to be free. And also freedom's about boundaries. I'm not going to let my mother-in-law tell me and my family what we're doing. I'm not going to let my mom tell me and my family what we're going to do for the holidays when we're burnt out. We don't have the money to travel. We're exhausted. Fill in the blank. Kids are sick. My wife and I are going to do what's best for our family because we're free. And then we're going to plug into these other relationships. And so freedom is a huge one. Just looking around your life, clutter, calendars that fall over. If you're 5 minutes late on Monday, your whole week's ruined, right? We just stack our lives up. And so this just goes back to this concept of, man, in my house, we choose agency. We choose freedom. What does that look like? And another one is mindfulness. Jocko calls it detachment, right? It's this idea that I am going to work every second of every day to lengthen the gap between what just happened to me and my response to it. That guy just bumped into me. Do I just hit him? Or do I exhale and I whisper a quick prayer? That dude's having a rough day. Here's a good example. Yesterday, I was dropping my daughter off. I was dropping my daughter off at elementary school. I am driving the ultra masculine vehicle, the Toyota Highlander, right? It is designed to carry groceries and car seats. And I'm crushing it with my 8-year-old daughter in the Highlander. And I'm pulling in, and it's just like this. It's kind of like a little dance where mostly mothers, but also a couple of us dads are picking up our kids, and 2 lanes come down to 1 lane. Well, this dude in a giant jacked up F-250, absolutely with a turbocharger on it so you can hear it 9 miles away, slings around and just flat cuts me off as I'm turning in. And I'm just going to tell you, dude, the insta rage, it was in my chest before I even knew it. And old John, and bro, I've worked hard to just put old John to bed. Old John just, man, was grabbing for the door to get out of the car. And I exhaled and released the door handle. My daughter's in the back, had no idea this was going on. And I quietly, this is 10 years of work, by the way, I just whispered, man, if that's how this dude rolls, his life is infinitely more miserable than mine. I got it pretty good. And I turned the music back up, but I think we were listening to Taylor Swift at my daughter's request, and
Was it
she was
London?
singing her little head off.
Was it London Boy? That's my daughter's favorite right now.
Dude, you are a better dad than me because I don't know. But I turned it back up. That's mindfulness, right? I don't have to react. And in fact, if I have to react, he's got power over me, and I refuse to give him that. Whether it's a politician, whether it's my wife, whether it's my kids, whether it's anybody, y'all don't have that kind of power over me. That's mine. And so mindfulness is the choice to, whether it's a thought, whether it's a reaction, whether it's a, I don't have to do that. I get to choose which hills I die on. I'm going to be very, very selective about those things. And again, I'm pointing back towards peace, right? And the last pillar is health and healing, man. If you got childhood trauma, you got to deal with them. If you got PTSD, you got to deal with them. And you got to go see a doctor. You got to go see a shaman, if that's your thing. You got to go see a therapist. You got to deal with that stuff. If you are 40 pounds overweight and you're metabolically unhealthy, you got to go see a doctor, man. You got to start taking care of yourself. Go to the gym. You have to have a healthy body so that your brain and body can work together, right? So those are several of the big pillars.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick break from the podcast to share a project I'm working on, Agora Social Club, a brick and mortar location located in the heart of Larchmont, New York. Welcome to Agora Social Club, the Westchester's hub for guys to gather, connect, and unwind. In the last 6 years, I've been facilitating a men's group called the Council of Dudes. And within that 6 years, I've realized that guys need a place where they can get together, connect, and build community. A place that's not the gym, that's not jujitsu, that's not the bar, but a place where guys can come with no ego and grow and develop together. So here we have our chess table. We're gonna be having monthly chess lessons and our take a book, leave a book library. Some of these I've read, some of these I haven't. Quantum physics to personal development to fiction. We also have our record player area. In the last few years, I've become very obsessed with jazz music. And if you don't know how to play vinyl, no big deal. It hooks up to your phone via Bluetooth. We have artwork from California to local artists. We have these small little work tables. So if you want to hang on the couch and get some work done, you can just come pop them open. And we also have our little workspace here with quotes from Muhammad Ali, Albert Einstein, Theodore Roosevelt. We also have our coffee bar, small fridge, and more quotes and artwork over the wall. Head on over to agorasocialclub.com, sign up for our free 7-day trial, and with that, you will get a key fob. Scan your key fob, and you have access to this space from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. So if you're a guy in the Westchester area and you're looking to gather, connect, and unwind with like-minded men, head on over to agorasocialclub.com and sign up. You break it down beautifully in the book as the 6 daily choices. And I want to just go back quickly to the mindfulness one. And I think that was a line of demarcation for me when I realized, if I had to say, when did I become a man? It was the moment when I realized that I can choose on how I respond to something versus react to it. And that was a real moment in time. And I remember it very distinctly. I was engaging with someone, and I remember sitting there and saying to myself, this person needs me to react to the way I used to react in this moment to validate who they are. I'm going to make a choice and not do that. And you're right. It's the stimulus. And then how much of a space can you create between that and how you show up in the world that makes the difference in how you show up as a parent, a spouse, an employee, a leader, and overall as a man in our case.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm embarrassed that it took me this long. I have a history of being a hothead, and my wife said she got to where she could, when we were dating, especially, she could tell by how my jaw would clench that she would grab my shirt and say, hey, it's time to go. Wherever we happen to be, like, hey, it's time for us to go. And I just always wanted to honor and respect her. So if she always says time to go, I'd always just go. But she could tell, oh, he's about to set off. And I remember an interview. I keep bringing him up. I don't know why I keep bringing him up, but it was an interview with Jocko, who is a world-renowned judo practitioner, Navy SEAL, yada, yada, yada. Tough guy. And he, the interviewer said, all right, so you're walking down the street with your wife and your daughters, and somebody steps out and like steps to you. What do you do to him? And he said, well, I grab my wife's hand and my daughter's hand, and I'll walk across the street and we head home. And the guy was kind of flabbergasted. And he was like, well, dude, what about your wife's honor? Like, what if he gets in your face? And I'm paraphrasing a bit, but the response was so powerful, and it really was convicting for me. He said, if it takes me, a man who only a handful of people on planet Earth can defeat me in hand-to-hand combat, and they all do it for a living. If it takes me beating up a vagrant on the side of the street in front of my wife to show her I honor her, I have failed her in every way imaginable. And I remember exhaling and going, oh my gosh, I have been flexing for the last 25 years. When really what my wife wanted me to do was A, be able to take care of her, be able to love her and walk alongside her, be able to honor and respect her, and get everybody home safely so we can watch TV and eat popcorn, right? Like, what are you doing, right? And it was this, it was this, oh, I get to choose how this whole thing goes. I'm gonna go home. I want to go home because I got a really good life. And I went to the Social Distortion concert this past weekend. It was amazing. And I am 46. Those mosh pits hit a little bit harder than they used to.
They certainly do.
And I have a bad habit of getting in those things, and then somebody will hit me too hard, and they kind of break the code of the mosh pit, and then I kind of lose it. And this time I got hit real hard, and I smiled, and I backed up, and I sang my guts out for the next hour and a half and had a great time. Because, dude, I don't have that ego anymore, right? I want to have a good time. I want to sing some songs with the great Mike Ness, and then I want to go home and see my wife and my kids, and I got a good life. And so it's just extending that gap. What is all this flexing for? What are we doing, man? Globally, what are we doing in our neighborhoods? What are we doing with our teachers in our schools and our school board meetings? It's a madhouse. Go home, be with your family. And if you don't like the home you've created at home, start there. Fix that one. Create some peace in your home, right? And then head out into the community and start doing what you need to do there.
But the thing is, no one teaches that.
And you're getting me all fired up today, Vinny.
Good. That's the goal. No, but here's the thing. No one teaches us that as young men, right? Like my son's 4, and there was a stretch of time where he would bite, and my daughter who's 9 would poke the bear, and I'd say, Emma, you're poking the bear, and he's just pure adrenaline, right? He's just pure, alpha male, and his was like, oh, I'm gonna bite you. He's gotten much better at it, right? But we're not taught, and we're not cultivated to handle our emotions. It goes back to what you're saying before, when that person cuts you off, or you have that engagement with someone at the grocery store. My daughter comes home from school and says, this person made me feel like that. And I say, no, they didn't. You're making yourself feel like that. All they did was expose something within you that you need to interface with now. So it's a deeper conversation, and she's 9. But if you don't teach them that at this young age, they're going to go out in the world, they're going to interface with the world, and they're going to play the victim, and everybody's going to burst their bubble. And I say, you're allowing that person to take away your energy. Don't let it happen. Right. You're in charge of how you show up in the world.
Well, and I think the next step for a parent, like with the new rules of parenting, if you will, is let's walk through a scenario real quick. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to show you what this looks like in real life. And so I love that you're saying, no, you get to decide who hurts you. And that person that you don't know, they don't get a vote in your life. Here's how that looks. Because I, as a dad, I get it too, right? People are mean to me, and I get it too. And here's how I'm going to react. I love Becky Kennedy out of New York. She's a psychologist who works with kids, and she's pretty amazing. But she talks about most kids, and I'm going to fast forward that to adults. Nobody likes feeling that out of control, where you're screaming and frothing at the mouth, and you find yourself yelling at a teenage kid at a little league game, or gripping your steering wheel so tight on the way home from work because your boss just got mad at you because the project you turned in was pretty crappy. Nobody likes feeling like that. And we have dumped all of that as a moral or character issue. And I'm with her. I think it's a skills issue. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do next. I just got embarrassed at my job. All right, what is it about that situation that I feel embarrassed? Oh, it goes all the way back to what my dad said. If you get a B, you get your butt out of my face because I don't want to see you. All right, I learned at a young age that I'm only worth my performance. I'll sing and dance, and I'll be the clapping monkey for my dad, for my coaches, for my drill sergeants, for my first boss, my second boss. And my whole life is about my ability to perform. And the day somebody challenges that with, hey, this report sucked, now my entire identity just got knocked over, right? That's a skills issue, man. That's not a character default. Let's learn some new skills, man. Let's learn that you got value, and we're going to learn how to accept hard criticism and hard feedback, and stand up tall, go back and correct it, and get the thing done right. And we're also going to realize, hey, if I don't owe anybody any money, I don't really care what that boss says. I can leave, right? And I can walk out the door. And so then I can accept criticism for what it is, a criticism of the project, not a criticism of me as a guy, right? That's a skills issue, dude. You just have to be able to say, all right, I'm yelling at my kids all the time. This is not working. I don't like being this guy. My kids are scared of me. I don't want this in my home. I got to say out loud, I don't know what to do next. My dad did this to me and I'm done with it. I'm not passing this thing on. I got to go get some more skills. I got to go talk to a counselor. I got to go talk to a good pastor. I got to go talk to somebody who I know who's a great dad and sit down and say, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'll buy beer. Will you help me? Right? That is what a true masculine male knows their limits and knows where there's short information and goes and asks somebody who knows what they're doing. Not who hides it and just does what they've been doing that's not working harder and faster and louder, right? That's a Neanderthal way of solving problems. And that's the way we're all trying to solve problems these days.
Yeah, I think that reverse engineering of yourself and then take it a step further, your parents and why they showed up that way, right? It's so easy to just, put it on the boss or point the blame to someone else. But when you sit down and go, well, why am I feeling this way? And you reverse engineer it to your dad, and you could stop there. But then the next step for me, in my experience, has been, well, let's reverse engineer my dad, or let's reverse engineer my mom. And where did they come from? And what was their parenting? What was their relationship with their parents? And then it's almost very liberating when you go, oh, it's not their fault either. And it's probably not your grandparents' fault either. So why am I carrying the burden of this interaction with all this past bullshit that's kind of showing up in this one moment?
Exactly. And here's the thing. I've sat with people and said, I am heartbroken to tell you that your son is in that next room and he has died. I've held screaming mothers who are trying to get into a house to see their kid who died by suicide, and my job was to not let the mom in. I've cleaned brains off of bathrooms. I've sat with people when they have lost everything. I've sat with kids who got run over at a university event because they were the wrong color or whatever the thing is. Every time, we always, no matter what we're working through, we land on the same question. What are you going to do now? And yes, those things from our past are super instructive. And I want to know, where did I get this story that I'm unlovable if I don't have a six-pack abs because I'm tired and I'm trying to write a book and I don't have time to be in the gym 24/7. And by the way, I just met this guy who's a professional lifter and he doesn't have abs right now because he's not dieting. Oh, I didn't know you diet. What? Where did I get this picture? Right. And so those stories are important to peel back. But the real question is, what are you going to do now? Number one, stop yelling at your freaking kids. And if you're about to start yelling, go outside and ask yourself, what are you trying to protect yourself from by taking it out on that kid? Right? Let's start there, right? Let's get some concrete action steps that we're going to put the brakes on, and then reverse engineer it. Why is my body setting off like this? Why is my identity threatened just because my wife cooked this instead of this? My God. Why is my identity? Why am I being grumpy because my wife got a raise and she makes $10,000 more than I do now? Why aren't we all cheering? Because the money goes in the same, like, that's the root, man. What are you going to do now? And I think all of us, like, it's so maddening. We have no plan moving forward, dude. And you know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but everyone's plan is just to tell you how crappy that guy's plan is. And it's like, what are we doing? What are we going to do now? Cool. We're here. What are we going to do now? you know what? I'm going to quit yelling at my kids. You know what? I'm going to sit down with my wife and start being honest about how much debt I have. I'm going to sit down with my wife every week, and we're going to talk about, you don't have aphrodisiac in your home. You can Google, right, how to have more sex and how to be more romantic. You can do that. Or once a week, just sit down and go over the weekly budget and the weekly calendar with your spouse. Game on, brother. Right?
You're spot on with that.
Be honest about when you're going to be honest about, hey, I'll take the kids to school on these days and I'll be home at this time, and actually show up on time when you said you were going to. Game on, right? We've just overcomplicated stuff, man. What are you going to do now?
Well, it's and the screen with the kids thing is so it's so easy to fly off the handle, because they will test you in a way like nothing else, right? There's nothing I love. It's almost like these two very polarizing positions of like extreme love followed by like moments of extreme frustration, or getting two kids out of the house for school and getting your shoes and get dressed. Dude. But you never, if I have that moment where I do have a lapse of judgment and yell and scream, right? I never feel good about it. I never walk away from a moment of frustration with my children and go, that was great. I'm so glad I yelled at my kids that way. So if you can catch yourself, right? And then the thing is, like, if you can name it, you could tame it, right? That old mindset of like, I will say out loud, guys, daddy's getting to the point where I'm getting frustrated, right? We need to kind of recalibrate here a little bit, right? Yeah. But the moments I'm able to push through that moment and give them love, because at the end of the day, they really just want my attention and love in some way, shape, or form, right? So that's what they're looking for. That's it. It's that simple. So when I can give them that, the end result is so much better. And I never regret giving them too much love.
No, and sometimes they need some boundaries. Hey, I have to send this report in. I love you. I see you. Hang right there, or go hang out in your room. But you can't have me for the next 25 minutes. I got to get this thing knocked out. And you're honoring them by giving them a boundary. And then you're also honoring them by letting them know, hey, you're not the center of my universe. You don't run this house. I do, because I'm the parent. And I love you, and I see you, and I will connect with you soon. And so that stuff's all good. I think one other important thing I'll throw in here. I recently was on I won't name the person. I was on a show, and I said, when's the last time you said the words, I'm sorry? And he just smiled, and he's like, I probably never, right? If you do fly off the handle at your kid, I found myself last night. Here I am on Vinny, on your show, talking about this. My wife's been out of town, so I've been single dadding it. And I was in a standoff with an 8-year-old little girl. And a very unproductive
I know it all too well.
Where I said, hey, put on your shoes. Hey, put on your shoes. We got to go. Put on your shoes. And then all of a sudden she plops down to grab the little dog that we have. And I said, I need you to put on your shoes. And then she hops up and she says, why are you talking to me like I'm dumb and you don't love me and you're so mad? And I'm like, I told you 5 times. Anyway, in that conversation, I finally stopped. And I was like, I'm not engaging in this conversation. Okay. I raised my voice and I'm sorry. That was not a good way to do that. Go put on your shoes, please, so we can go. Right. And she went and put her shoes on. Now, I would have loved to have stopped her and said, hey, come back here and don't roll your. I'm going to pick my battles, because she's a good kid and she's a frustrated kid and she misses her mom. And I do things differently than her mom. Yada, yada. I found myself engaging with an 8-year-old, which is an unwinnable proposition. And by the way, what do I actually try to solve from this? What am I actually trying to get here? A, we have to go, so get your shoes on. B, I'm in charge, and I'm going to give you that boundary and that safety, letting you know that you don't run this house. And C, I get being frustrated too. Go get your shoes. Let's get out of here. Right? I have to keep the bigger picture in mind.
Well, you say in one of the 6 choices, you say reality, and you said choosing reality is owning that your kids didn't make you raise your voice. They don't have that kind of power. You are unprepared, tired, stressed, and impatient, and you took it out on them.
Yeah. Y'all are starting to piss me off. I'll actually interject on that and be like, no, they're not. They don't have that kind of power. They're 10. You, my brother, are acting like a child. Stop. Yeah. Right. Or you didn't get any sleep last night, or you, coach, are hungover, or you, coach, didn't make it out of your little league practice when you were a kid, Uncle Rico, and you're still trying to relive the high school game. and you're taking it on these little kids out here. Chill out, right? They don't have the power to make you mad. And by the way, when I say that, people always like, oh, they should learn consequences. They should learn that their words have power over people. Really? How's that working out for all of us? Letting a bunch of children know that they are running the show for the adults in their lives. Our whole society's crumbling around that notion. Kids need to know their parents, as Dr. Kennedy says, are sturdy. You can't push me over. You're a kid. You can't do anything to make me not love you. You're a kid. You're not that strong. You're not that bad. You can't do anything to make me mad. You don't have that kind of power. And so when I'm talking to my daughter, I will say, I'm choosing to get frustrated right now because I've told you 5 times to pick up your shoes. I'm choosing frustration right now. I'm choosing to get angry right now because of the way you talk to your brother. And because you chose to talk to your brother that way, right there on the wall are the Delony family values. We treat each other with dignity and respect. You chose to violate that. So now you chose these consequences, which I hate for you because our whole house doesn't work when you're not here, right? And she is learning, oh, I am the one responsible for my choices, not all these other people in my life. And is that a pain in the butt? Is that different than I was raised? Yeah, dude. And I was raised by a Texas cop. Yeah, very different. But
I was raised by a New York cop, so I get it.
There we go. So I'm doing my best, man. And by the way, our dad saw the worst of humanity every day of their life. And they said, I'll be damned if I'll let my boys experience this, right? And so they were trying to love us the best they knew how with the tools they had in their toolkit. Good on them. And would I do it differently? I am doing it differently. And do I love my old man? Dang right I do. Absolutely do.
Hello, friends. How are you? Just want to take a quick, brief break from the podcast, talk about a piece of gear that I've been rocking nonstop, and that's Wowie shorts. WowieLife.com, the Nomad 2.0s. They are super diverse. They're super comfortable. They've got this unique little stylish trim on the pocket, different on each color. I got them in green. I got them in blue. The black are in the laundry. They come with a lining, so you don't have to waste a pair of underwear, which is huge. I wear them to jiu-jitsu. I wear them on the trail. I wear them to the beach. I wear them out to dinner. They're super diverse. They're super comfortable. They're family-owned, which is always awesome. And they just released a new pair of sweatpants called the Ramblers and the Flow, which they are so dope. I can't get enough of them. I wear them all the time. They're pretty much the only pair of shorts I'm rocking these days. And for listeners of this podcast, you can get 15% off of your entire purchase with the promo code VBShow. So head on over to WowieLife.com. Grab yourself a pair of the Nomad 2.0s. Those are my personal favorite, and you will not regret it. Check them out, WowieLife.com. Now back to the show. You said a key word there when in regards to how you manage the children. That's using the word seen. And in Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the big takeaway for me, and I understand that's in regards to like an employment atmosphere, but it also translates to relationships and just your overall human-to-human connection. The underlying thriving notion that people need to be seen and heard, and ultimately that boils down to unconditionally loved. And using the word seen as saying, hey, listen, I love you. I see you right now, but I need to go and do this is a very powerful statement, because I think that is what we're also seeing in a grand scale are a bunch of people who've never been seen. So now they're parading around in different ways, shapes, and forms and stamping and saying, look at me, see me, see me. And now this is what we're engaging with. And that goes from little children to full-grown adults that, to show up in the world and see someone, it's so empowering.
Yeah, again, I keep mentioning Jocko and Becky Kennedy, which are two very
awesome people. Listen, two great people, but yeah.
I actually heard Dr. Kennedy say something recently, and I rolled my eyes. I was like, all right. My daughter and I got in another tango, and my daughter was very upset. And I just followed Dr. Kennedy's script verbatim. I looked at my daughter and I held her hands and I said, I believe you, and your big feelings that you have, they don't scare me. My daughter, who is a human hurricane, just exhaled. It's like all the fight left. And the sentence, I mean, the phrase, I believe you. I thought, my goodness, man, if my wife would say that to me, that'd be so awesome. When I'm like, oh, it's all coming down. I think we're all going to die. And my wife said, I believe you that you're scared right now, John. Here's the best thing I think for our family. What do you think about that? All right, you're probably right. Right. I think most of us just want to be believed and we want to be seen. And you're right, man. It's from kids. And if the kids aren't seen, they will get to be adults and they'll burn it down. Right. You will see me. You will experience me. And I think a lot of that can be staved off as when we're dealing with kids, man. Like you said, with your employees, with anybody.
Yeah, no, it's important to see people, and that's the reality of the conversation earlier, is that person who cuts you off, that woman behind the counter at the supermarket who you're labeling as some type of bitch. They're going through their own story. You don't know what they're going home to. You don't know what experiences have led them up to that moment. And that's part of seeing someone, is creating a story within your mind of understanding that God recognizes God, seeing them as an individual that may be going through something else. And chances are good that they're not just a bitch. And that guy who cut you off and all that stuff, he's showing up in the world in this moment as not his best self. And there's something that's led him to that. Maybe he's late. Maybe, he has to take his kids to the doctor. And, there's all these scenarios. And it might be bullshit. But if you lead with empathy, you're going to be just better off as a human being in your own right.
Well, I get to pick the story that I make up about somebody, right? And there was a time when my wife had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured, and she almost bled out at home. And because she's a West Texas farm girl, she drove herself to the ER without call. Anyway, I had to go pick my son up from school, not knowing if my wife was dead. I've been there. I don't know what that guy was going through, but I get to do one of two things. He cuts me off. He wheels his big turbocharged. And by the way, some of my frustration was that I was in a little Highlander and he was in a big, cool F-250. Part of it was that, right?
Ego, right?
Part of it was ego. Like, man, I'd love to trade cars with you. I'll just trade you straight up if you want to. Part of it was ego. And then I got to exhale and say either that guy cut me off because or dude, he's got to pick up his kid and get to the doctor. Dear God, help his wife to still be okay when he gets there. I get to pick the story I make up, man. And by the way, I'm not going to give the lady at the deli counter, I'm not going to give her what remaining energy I have left after a wild day at work. My kids get that. I'm not going to give her that. I'm not going to give her a key, a passport into my soul and ruin my day. She doesn't get to do that. I'm going to acknowledge her. And it's like you said, man, things must be tough. Tough. Have a good one, man. I got my deli meat. I'm not going to sacrifice honor and integrity at the counter, right? I'm not going to.
I got my quarter pound of turkey. I'm on my way. You've said this in multiple conversations, that people don't know what they want. If you ask someone, what do you want? The answer becomes everything else but what they actually want. So from your experience, what would you say people want, right? And what do people need?
I think Chris Williamson asked this question in a really unique way. What if instead of asking ourselves, what do we want? What if we asked ourselves, what do we want to want? Because when you ask me what I want, I'm going to tell you, I want a new car. I want a bigger house. I want some cooler clothes. If you said, what would you want to want? I would say, man, I would love to have a warm house filled with a ton of laughter and some good music playing. I would want peace. But if you ask me in the short term, I want like unlimited Amazon subscription. I just buy whatever I want on Amazon. Just click. And so I think most people, most of the time, need and crave and want peace. And we don't even know what that means anymore. I think I wrote about in the book, my granddad was a World War II vet when the world was fighting Nazis. He knows that. And then he knows when he came home and there was not that. He understood peace at a visceral level. We don't. Now peace is when somebody disagrees with us. It's madness. It's madness. I think most people want peace, and the challenge is they think that the avenue to peace is stuff, things, power, and it's not. It is, who do you love and who loves you? And I wish it was more than that, but it's not.
Yeah, and those expressions of the things that are in your Amazon cart, are you seeking some form of validation, right? Anytime I'm out to buy something, I stop myself and go, when was the last time I wanted to buy something? When was this feeling present last time? Oh, it's when I wanted this thing and then I bought it. Did it kind of scratch the itch? Maybe for a second, but the reality was that was just filling a void within myself of trying to show up in the world in a certain way or peacock my way in the world in a certain way that is false. And if I sit and go, I really don't need to buy this fucking thing. This is just me looking to be a better version of myself in a peacocking way. And really be honest with myself, we don't need any of that shit. And it does become this Amazon Prime culture where it's so easy to fill that void with something.
Well, yeah, in a body designed for scarcity, designed for times of very, very, very little, we have a biochemical reward pathway for getting stuff. And now buying things is not a thing we do to stay alive. It's a Xanax. It's a way to numb out and not feel or actually feeling, which might be bored, which might be less than, which might be unaccomplished, which might be my job's going away and I'm nervous. So I'm going to get on here and buy the next foot warmer because what are you doing? Get another degree. Focus on that, right? Go learn a new skill, call somebody and let's figure some stuff out. So again, it's a way to distract ourselves over and over and over again.
Well, it's a distraction from the unknown, right? And the unknown is a huge death is the unknown, the future's obviously the unknown, and you can lean into two forms of that. You can lean into the scary part of the unknown, or you can lean into the optimistic, hey, everything could be okay unknown, right? They're both potential realities. It's a matter of which way you want to kind of point that needle and what direction you want to step into.
Yeah, the famous psychologist Amos Tversky said, he was Daniel Kahneman's partner, and he said, a famous research partner, he said, pessimism is stupid because if it actually, the thing you were worrying about comes true, you actually experience it twice, once when you worried about it, once when it happened. He goes, it makes more sense to assume the best of what's going to happen. That way, if it doesn't happen, you only experience the negative side once. And I thought, that's genius. that's a psychologist and a mathematician working at the same. It's just bad math, right?
Right.
So yeah, we get to make up a story. What if it all comes down? What if the US dollar goes away and everything collapses and we get attacked? But okay, we can spend time doing that. And it's healthy for us to have a plan. But what if it all goes right? What if AI opens up parts of the economy that never existed? We didn't even know they existed. And those who were saying our economy is going to run out of gas in 1970, who couldn't even have imagined what this thing called the internet was, we're about to be on a, what if that's true? What if that's true? What if I walked around with those glasses on, like, man, I think things are about to get awesome. They're messy right now and they're tough and we're going to work our way through this thing. What if that was the case? Brene Brown says, what you go looking for in the world, you are sure to find. And I think all of us are looking for where everything's falling apart, and we will see it everywhere. Or we could look, hey, here's where people are kind of coming together. Here's where they're starting to solve some of the stuff. Here's where people are not doing traditional politics and they're just solving stuff in their local neighborhoods. Here's where travel sports teams are closing down so people can just get back to neighborhood sports and summer vacations and camping trips with their parents. Like, what if we just looked for that kind of stuff all over the place? You're going to see hope everywhere if you start looking for it.
Hello, friends. How are you? Hope you are doing well. Just want to take a quick, brief break from the podcast, talk about something that I'm super passionate about, and that's mental health and clarity and perspective. For those of you who may not know, I am a certified life coach, but I don't really like that term because who am I to tell you how to live your life? Nobody. I prefer the term journeyman for hire. The reason I enjoy that is because life is a journey. Life is about going into different adventures within yourself and learning and gaining insight and perspective. And I've done that for myself, and I've done it for some clients, and it has been so rewarding. And to see people come out on the other side of their own hindrances and their own hesitations is so rewarding. So if you're interested in kind of moving out of that space of just blah, who wants to feel blah? It's your life. You should live it the way you want to. So if you need someone just to chat with and lean on and be given some tools and tips, I guess you can call them, I don't know, to help you get to the next level of life, head on over to vinnybrusco.com, fill out the form, set up a 10 to 15 minute conversation. We'll chat and we'll see if it's a good fit. Maybe we don't get along. Maybe we don't vibe. That's okay. There's a million life coaches out there now. But I want to help you become the best version of yourself, and I want to help people grow and become better. So if you're looking to grow and become better, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, head on over to vinnybrusco.com, book your call, and hope to hear from you soon. Back to the podcast. Yeah. Look for the heroes, right? The frequency illusion, Bader Meinhof, right? What you have in your zeitgeist, you will keep on seeing over and over and over again. It's the red Jeep Wrangler, right?
And it's when you outsource that zeitgeist to Instagram or to Facebook instead of real people in real life, right? They'll give you one that will keep you glued to it. And that's a little bit different than seeing your incredible wife who's exhausted, needs your love and support at home, or your kids who are struggling, or what. Call your dad. Say, hey, Dad, I haven't talked to you in a while. How are you doing? That's a zeitgeist you can choose also.
Yeah, and it becomes this, this pathway, the yellow brick road, right? This breadcrumb trail towards this better life that you can lean into, right? The magic, the golden thread, all these things kind of piggyback off of each other to put you on a trajectory towards the best version of yourself, or the best, showing up in the best way that you can. And that's a healthier way to navigate life. And that is a potential opportunity to build a non-anxious life, right? To lean in towards the positivity. And everything that you break down in the book, the 6 daily choices, are all these expressions and opportunities to show up in a way that's healthier, mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Hey, you landed the plane better than I've ever landed it. So well done on that one. But also, here's me just being honest. There's not an easy, and I write about this, there's not an easy path. Like, building an unanxious life is hard, and it's countercultural, and there's times it's miserable, and there's times you just want to go out to eat and you're tired of sticking to a budget, and there's times you just want to go hit that dude in the mouth, and you're practicing mindfulness, and there's times you just want to pull your kids out of school because you don't like what that teacher just said, and your kids need to learn that sometimes people say things that are scary, and mom and dad are still a safe place. Like, it's hard, and being anxious all the time is hard too. So there's not an either or, there's not an easy one or a less easy one. They both are miserable. Pick the one that's going to lead towards peace in your home, peace in your neighborhood. Not the one that's going to lead to chaos and electricity rattling through everything all the time. You got to choose your hard. Choose the one that's going to lead you to where you want to go, not the one that's just all the time.
Yeah, and I think putting yourself in scenarios where you are choosing your hard, whether it be, for me, sensory deprivation, jiu-jitsu, cold plunges, all of the modalities, that's really important, because it does give you this vacuum of existence that now, when the world creates hardness or difficulty for you, you're able to engage in it with a mindful, stable approach rather than just flying off the hinges and reacting.
Amen. Let's live less reactive lives.
Absolutely. Dr. Delony, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This is a pleasure, man. I really enjoyed the book. I love the show that you're doing. It reminds me of Frasier, which I was a big fan of. So it's
yeah,
the modern, it's the modern day Frasier, and I'd love to have you back on and just mix it up again.
Well, I appreciate you, brother VB, and yeah, man. I happily carry the Frasier torch. I'm not quite as cool or smart as that guy, but I'll carry the torch forward. That's awesome.
You do a good job of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Vinny. Take care, brother.